And welcome everybody to week 11 of our course. We are nearing the end and certainly nearing the end of the sales process. This week, we are covering chapter 10 in your textbook, which is on obtaining commitment. This is it. We are finally to the end of the sales process. So it's very, very important to remember everything we've talked about up to this point, but also keep in mind that you have done most of the work that it's taken to get to the organic sale. So following along again, chapter 10 in our books, and keep in mind that your sales scripts, your UAF sales scripts are due at the end of this week. So make sure to listen to this lecture, follow through, go back through the notes, but then also get your sales script submitted. Again, that's a big portion of your grade for the year. So make sure that you're getting those in and on time. So jumping into it, we have some key terms here that you're going to see. You have the assumptive close, the balance sheet close, benefit and waiting close, benefit summary close, continuous yes close, direct request close, as well as a bunch of others that we're going to talk about in your book. Keep in mind that there are many different ways to close that you're going to understand. You need to know all of them because different times of situations, these will each come in place. But just know that, you need to understand, especially if somebody's using this towards you as well, so that you can recognize what's going on. You can recognize what might the customer relate to more than another. Some are very balance sheet where, you talk about the positives, you talk about the negatives. Others are more just direct. They're just looking, like we talked about last week, they're looking for approval to purchase something. So recognizing through the sales process the type of customer that you might have, you may start off with one closing method and end up using another. A lot of times for the assumptive close or for the direct close, maybe you've used something else in the past, or you've used something else first to get you to the point of using something a little more direct. So make sure that you're taking a look at all of those terms in your textbook. So obtaining commitment. You've done your research, you've opened the conversation, you completed the needs analysis, most important, finding the value, finding the needs. You've presented the solutions. Customer client has had some objections, but you've overcome those objections. Now it's really time to seal the deal. Now is the time to obtain the commitment. So closing time, the ask, most important, the ask, most important part of the entire sales process is actually getting to the ask and then making the ask. And yes, the part is most forgotten by the salesperson in the sales process is getting all the way in to the end and actually not making the ask. So, but if the value has been presented, if the salesperson's done everything that they need to do up to that point, they've proven the value, they've proven that there's a need and there's something that can provide a service or a benefit to the customer or client, then the salesperson certainly deserves the right to go ahead and ask the question and make the sale. Very, very few times are you going to get to the point where somebody can see a need or a value for a product or a service, and then you're actually not going to make sure you're not going to be able to make that close. So closing happens organically throughout the process, but should be solidified by the ask. In other words, you still have to make the ask. However you choose to do that is based off of your best judgment. We'll give you a few techniques and a few tools to help make that possible. But again, this should happen organically so that when you get down to the end, it's a foregone conclusion that the customer or client is going to sign up for whatever that may be, benefit, service, or product, and that the answer is going to be yes. But of course, closing time also means that sometimes you're going to get a no. Perhaps you get a no, recognizing that there is an opportunity cost of a no. In other words, the reward to the risk, right? So the opportunity cost, meaning that you are saving time. If you can get somebody to give you an answer, yes or no, they're saying no, you can choose to follow up with that person at a given time. But if they're at least telling you no, you have the ability to go spend time on other clients, other customers, where they might get you to a yes. So there's certainly a benefit sometimes of hearing no, just like there's certainly a benefit of getting that sale and hearing yes. So when should you ask for the sale? There's a lot on this slide, but really you should be looking for buying signals. And when you get buying signals, such as the following buying signals, you should be ready to make the sale. All of these are examples. I'm not going to read all of them, but agreement of a need. Again, we talk a lot about the need and the value. Agreement that the offering will meet needs. Justification of a value proposition, probably most importantly, that there is a value that you are providing this person in the likelihood of a service or a product that can be net. Expression of interest, recognition of urgency. Urgency, ever you can create urgency or create leverage, as we call it sometimes. It's a great time to ask for the sale. One of the things down here is presents a strong buying signal. Again, keep in mind that these are all buying signals, things that the customer client is telling you that shows that they are ready to buy or that there is a value here that they're not going to be able to do without. So read through some of those in your textbook, but these are just a few examples of a few buying signals that are there. So closing methods, again, there are a lot of different closing methods. Most importantly is creating a sense of urgency, creating that leverage, finding some way that can prove that there is value to this customer and that they shouldn't go on without it. So you have the direct request. Really, the direct request is simply that. It is basically asking the customer client for the sale in a very straightforward manner. Sounds like you're ready to get signed up, or how many tickets can we sell you? You know, something that's very direct. You're not beating around the bush. You're not asking questions. You're very much, or you're not asking more questions. You're very much asking a simple, hey, how can we get this rolling? The benefit summary. Benefit summary is basically summarizing the most relevant features and the benefits. So you're going over basically what you've talked about. You're summarizing everything. This is a great example to catch people up to speed. We talked about this, you know, if you've taken the sport law class and the contract negotiations, getting to the end, you always want to make sure that you are summarizing what you talked about, that everybody's on the same page. You should be taking notes throughout so that you know at the end that you can summarize what you've talked about. You can summarize what they've agreed to and what they valued so that you can very quickly say, you know, these are the things that we've been over. This is why we feel like you'd be good to buy this product or this service. Get them to the point where they see in a nutshell all the things that they've agreed to so that they can say yes. You have the balance sheet close as well. Balance sheet close essentially looks at the advantages on one side, looks at the disadvantages on the other side, and then basically shows that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, and also gives you a chance to speak to those disadvantages, similar to overcoming objections, that you can actually overcome some of the disadvantages and show that there are more advantages. You have the fear close. Fear close is certainly not one that I would recommend. Basically saying that they're making a bad decision if they don't purchase or go somewhere else. All those things are used out of fear. It's unethical, so probably shouldn't use that one, but it is a way that people will close. The continuous yes. Continuous yes is essentially when the salesperson's asking a bunch of client or the client or the customer a bunch of questions in hopes of getting to a yes. So is this true that this will save you a lot of money? Yes. Is this true that you'll impress your customers by purchasing these tickets? Yes. You can get a series of yes questions in a row. That's a way that you can get somebody to purchase something. So continuous yes questions. You can present them with a legitimate alternative choice. So in other words, you can say, all right, how about we look at either the 12 pack or the 18 pack? Which one would be better for you? Or, hey, how about we look at 113 versus 114? 113's on this side of the aisle, 114's on the other side of the aisle. Which would be better for you, right? So giving them a legitimate alternative choice, which basically, you know, is a win-win situation. Regardless of which one they pick, you're going to win in the end. There's the assumptive close. The assumptive close is essentially where you say, hey, I'm going to send over the invoice, or we'll, send over the invoice and we'll get started. Or, hey, would you rather I bill you next week instead of this week? Something like that, where, you basically are assuming that they're going to close, and you're basically telling them that you're going to be sending over the paperwork or creating the purchase order. You have the negotiation close, basically where you're attempting to find kind of a fair deal, where you're essentially saying, all right, you can't do this, but you can do this, or why don't we look at this game versus instead of this game, or why don't you look at this section versus this section? So you're essentially negotiating, saying, we're giving you two different choices, but you have the ability to do this or this. And then the benefit and waiting close, again, not necessarily ethical, but it's an opportunity. If you feel like that they're there and they're not quite to the finish line, you can give the opportunity to say, hey, if you purchase today, we'll throw in an extra 20% discount. Or if you wait, purchase today, we'll give you 3 or 4 different months. Or, hey, if you purchase today, we'll give you a buy one, get one free ticket, something to that nature. This is kind of confusing sometimes to the customer because it's devaluing your product, but it's also, or your services, but it's also giving them an opportunity to think, hey, if I hold out even more, will they give me a better deal? Right. So that's a benefit in waiting. So how you're going to be successful. Most importantly, how you're going to be successful. These are 5 or 6 different things that you can see. It's not all the things that we can think of, but these are the ones that are described in your book. Certainly number 2, you've seen quite a bit. Number 1, though, you have to make the right recommendation, right? We've talked about this, going into a presentation, going into, a sales pitch. If you're way off and you haven't done your research or you don't understand what the customer really wants or needs, then you're going to not make the right recommendation. You're going to be way off and you're not going to get the exam. You're not going to get the sale. Be quiet, right? You have to be quiet. Listen some more, and then speak. We talk about this all semester through all of the purchasing sales process. You have to listen. You have to listen. You have to be quiet. You have to understand that sometimes it's the person who speaks first that loses. In this sense, if you just hold it out and be quiet and listen to the silence, you're going to be just fine and you're going to get that sale. Overcoming the fear of closing. A lot of people can get all the way down to it, but they can't actually make the ask. This is very common, so don't be worried if this is you, but you have to overcome that fear and you have to be ready to actually make that ask. Whether it's, getting married or whether it's, purchasing a house or whether it's, whatever it is, you have to be willing to get on out there, to put yourself on the line and make the close. Be positive, be persistent, but be assertive without being aggressive as well. Make sure that you're not being aggressive. People don't like the used car salesman mentality. They want to understand, they want to feel like that they're heard. They want to feel like that they are valued. But you can do these things without being overly aggressive. So be positive, be persistent, but don't be too aggressive. So after the sale, things that you need to do after the sale. The first is maximizing the sale. So basically there are 2 terms in your textbook that you need to feel comfortable with. And that's the difference between cross-selling and upselling. So cross-selling basically involves offering additional products to support or complement the product or package the customer's already decided to purchase. For example, if you purchase a ticket today, we'll give you a free hot dog, or we'll give you 4 free hot dogs, or a parking pass, or we'll give you transportation to the game, something like that. So selling them something in addition to selling them the ticket. And then upselling basically says, hey, if you purchase a ticket today, you can get a suite at a discounted rate, or you can get a premium ticket at this much, this much extra, right? So it's basically getting them to purchase something, but then basically upselling them or getting them to sell at an additional level than what they already purchased. Next, you need to confirm your order. Make sure that you're confirming your order. Basically, this is just restating what they've not agreed to purchase. So, we've just agreed that so-and-so is going to buy 4 tickets to a Friday night game at whatever level. You're going to repeat all of that information. So I have you 4 tickets for Friday night's game in section 113, and the person is going to say yes. Next is educating the customer. So educating the customer, understanding that, okay, this is what you're going to do next. Is the prime example of this is when you're checking into a hotel. You check into the hotel, and as soon as you get there, you give your ID, you give your credit card, and they say, all right, now that you're here, these are the things that you have access to. Your room is going to be here. Here are the elevators. you have access to the lounge at, so-and-so to so-and-so. The bar is open at this point, the pool's open at this point, the gym's open at this point. So you're basically educating the customer and the client to the services and the products that they have to offer. Then you're going to prepare the transition to services. So most organizations, especially larger organizations, are going to have the customer or the ticket salespeople or the salesman or woman, and then they're going to have the services person as well. So so-and-so is going to sell the tickets, and then somebody else is going to service the ticket. So they're usually two different people. One is focused on getting revenue in, and then the next is focused on keeping revenue in, right? So bringing revenue in and then keeping revenue there. So prepare the transition to the services person. If that's a different person, you need to make that introduction, make sure that they are felt, that they are taken care of and that they are in good position to, take advantage of the opportunity that they have. Next is reviewing next steps. So reviewing next steps could be, a number of different things that are out there. In this sense specifically, reviewing next steps basically just has to do with invoice dates or, purchasing where confirmation emails are going to come from. They need to understand that, so-and-so will be made electronically as opposed to physically. Any sort of next steps that are there, this is a good time to review those with the customer and the client. Again, over communicating is always better. And then lastly is obtaining referrals. Obtaining referrals basically just means that you're asking for them to stick their nose on the line for you to get more business, whether it's a colleague who might also be interested in tickets, whether it's another family that may be interested, whether it's somebody else who has, maybe had a negative experience. Whatever you can do to basically spread the word of mouth is what this is. It's getting the customer to sell on your behalf, to basically open up their Rolodex or their network to provide opportunities to get more people in the door. Although, of course, it's not always going to go positively, right? Sometimes you are going to hear no, you're going to get all the way down to, you're going to think that you have it, locked in, and then you're going to lose. I can promise you this is going to happen more and more as you go through it. Being a salesperson since, I was very, very young, I can tell you that I've heard no thousands and thousands of times, and I wish I was exaggerating. For every yes, I'm going to hear 2 to 3 to 4 no's. So you have to be able to deal with rejection. Not always easy, but it is necessary. And sometimes it's a good thing, right? Not all business is good business. I know I've said that before, but it's the truth. You have to go after the right business, and you have to learn when to walk away and cut your losses. So you're going to have to establish next steps, right? So dealing with rejection sometimes means establishing the next steps, So in some cases, if the customer is not ready to buy, you have the ability to set up a time for them to chat again. So maybe we'll revisit in 3 weeks, maybe we'll revisit in 6 weeks. Maybe you'll go back to the drawing board and say, hey, if this product's not right for you, what about this product or this service, right? So there are other things that you can sell, but basically you have to learn to deal well with a no, right? And that's the second thing, is learn how to deal with rejection. Don't be bitter, never take it personally. Just understand that maybe it's a time thing, maybe it's just whatever it is at that point, but you have to be able to deal well with no. And you have to understand that this is just business. It has nothing to do with you personally. It has nothing to do with you as a salesperson. Sometimes no just means no, nothing more than that. You have to understand that sometimes people think that the grass is always greener, right? In other words, keep that mentality of no just means no for right now. It doesn't mean no forever, right? I say that all the time. I can't tell you how many customers or clients, clients that I've had within my agency that were not initially signed to me out of college. We hear it all the time. Guys will say no, they'll go sign with another agency, and then 3 months later, they'll be, calling us up saying, hey, what can you do for me? We hear it all the time. So understanding that the servicing piece, even when somebody says no, is extremely, extremely important. And you have to continue to nurture those relationships, because you have to bet on the fact that you can do a good job and that these people will be back to you. So never take it personally. Never leave it on a negative note, that leads into the next one. Make sure you're leaving things on a positive note. Respect their opinion, respect their decision making, and do everything that you can to make sure that you're maintaining that relationship. Sales is a numbers game, as we know. For every yes, you're going to hear 2 to 3 to 4 no's. So just understand that, know that going into it, celebrate the successes and learn from the negatives always. And then lastly, obtain referrals. Again, if even if somebody says no, sometimes my best referrals come from people that didn't even sign with me, or people that didn't use my products or whatever it may be. So you need to always make sure that you're asking for referrals, asking for feedback. Sometimes that's a good thing too. In my business, we do that all the time. It used to be I'd be bitter about somebody saying no. Now I ask, hey, why did you decide to go with this other person? Or hey, what would it take to get you to a yes? Or hey, any feedback at all, positive, negative, anything that we can learn. And if people say, oh, not really, it's not anything, pry them on it. Try to make sure that they're giving you something good that you can take away from it. So in summary, closing is the right of the person to basically ask for a sale after the successful sales process. So this is just the organic ending of this process is, the right of the salesperson to ask for the sale. Don't forget the ask. Again, most forgotten part about this process, but should be the most organic. So don't forget to make the ask. Look for strong buying signals, whatever those may be. We've given you several of them, but there are a lot more out there. Look for strong buying signals. Always, if you have a strong buying signal, don't be afraid to make the ask. And again, be confident, be assertive, but also don't be pushy with it. If you can create scarcity or leverage, reinforce the need and the value. Again, the need and the value is always most important. But if you can reinforce how those things are necessary, you can create scarcity. You should be in a good position to make a sale. Listen. Be quiet before you say anything, before you talk. Make sure that you fully understand the needs and wants. Make sure that you understand what's available to this person. Listen to them, understand them, and you're going to make the sale. Again, as we talked about, be confident and assertive, but not pushy. Don't stop at yes. Just because somebody says yes, then you have to service. Servicing, it's always it's always better and easier to keep a client than it is to get a new client, right? So servicing is really, really important. Go back to that slide. We talked about all the servicing pieces, things to do after the sale. Don't stop at yes, because I promise you, word of mouth referrals will not come if you stop at yes. You just make the sale and you're just trying to get money passed over. People are going to remember that, and they're not going to come back. They're not going to tell people to go with you. And then remember, a no has nothing to do with you. Don't take it personally. Don't ever take it personally. Even if it is personal, don't take it personally. Just try to remember that this is just business. It has nothing to do with you. So thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate the time. If you have any questions, comments along the way, don't hesitate to ask. But I hope that you have a great week, and I look forward to reading your sales scripts or seeing your sales scripts. So thanks so much.